Dr. Brad Shuck, so good to see
Good
your
morning.
smiling face. I'm Charley Miller, Unitonomy, Dr. Brad Shuck, University of Louisville. I always have to get my pointing right here because it's a mirrored screen, and I always want to do this, but that's the wrong way. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
going this way.
yeah.
Hello, this way.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm talking to you live from my basement. Looks like you're in your home office. Of course, this is the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic where everyone that can is working from home, working remotely.
Yep.
I've been doing remote work a long time, so I'm not too phased by what's happening with how I collaborate with my team. But having lots of conversations over the last 3-4 weeks as people have been doing this, I realized, wow, everyone's experience is a little bit different, and it so much depends on what your home life is like, as that kind of really does merge with your work life, right? They're on top of each other right now. I'm going to ask you this because, yeah, you're a professor, but I also know you're a dad. What's it like right now for you, day in, day out, going through this?
Well, it's changed over the last couple of weeks, for us at least, where uh, 2 weeks ago it was pretty chaotic in our home. It was kind of crazy, but now we've kind of settled into a bit of a routine every day. So we know what time we're getting up, out of bed. We know the chores and things we need to do: make our bed, brush our teeth, eat breakfast, do those kinds of things. We have watched in probably an unhealthy amount of SpongeBob SquarePants in the morning. But it gets our day going, and our little girl Madeline, she goes down into she's got a little desk in her room that she does her homework at, and her NTI work, and we take brain breaks. But it's been a bit of a evolution, and I don't know why I didn't expect that. I guess I thought on day one this would just like all work out great and be incredible, and it wasn't. It was really, we have had some tough days. The advantage I think we have is my wife and I are both professional educators. Like, we should get this right, but we didn't, and it was hard. But have it. I will tell you this. I think we're going to look back on this crisis in the next couple of years, and my relationship with my daughter will have changed for the better as a result of it. There's no doubt that my relationship with my wife will have changed for the better, and Maddie gets to see things that she normally wouldn't get a chance to see. So she does get to see mom and dad get their work done and take calls and do meetings, and that this isn't just something that happens magically for folks, but there's some work that's involved in it. And also, these brain breaks have been good for us.
All right, so question to you: relationship with your daughter Madeline evolving, your wife evolving through this, and that's probably true for a lot of people. I just actually noticed last night, looking back at the photos I've taken of my kids over the last 4 or 5 days. Wow, I have a lot of pictures of my kids reading books together, hanging out together, cuddling together, watching TV together, and I mean like arms around each other. They're getting some real bonding that they wouldn't have had if they were still doing this preschool routine and busy weekends with the parents' routines. Like, because things are so slow, we're not moving around much, and we're all kind of on top of each other. I've noticed that their bond is getting really strong. They're 4 year olds and 1 year old. Now, they don't really do school. We're not doing homeschooling because they're just so young right here. We're just trying to keep them engaged. That said, my 4 year old I know just got off her class's video conference, which is crazy. A 4 year old having a video conference, but true story.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what you said though. So evolving relationships. What do you think is happening for employees in the collaborations? Do you think those are evolving, or are they just murky and confused?
I think for those who are used to working remotely, I think there's some defined boundaries around what those relationships are looking like. It certainly changed the productivity and the way that I get things done, and I think the way that the teams that I work with get things done. But I suspect it's still pretty murky, um, because the expectations for performance are slow to change, and I think they've been slow to change. My own personal example is, my wife and daughter would go to school at 6:30 in the morning. They left the house At 6:30 in the morning, I started work, and I would work until they got home, which sometimes wasn't until 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night, because of after school activities or going to the gym or whatever. And so I had 12, 13 hours to get work done. And now I don't have that. I've got 5 to 6 hours maybe in a day on a good day. And so instead of tracking time, and how much time I've got, I'm tracking projects. Now, here are the projects I've got to get done today. Here are the priorities. These are the big rocks I need to move. Um, and so I think those relationships across the board are probably still murky, and they're evolving every day. I mean, companies are making decisions about the future of the health and well-being and vitality of the organization, literally on an everyday basis. And so as those things change, the dynamics change, psychological safety changes, the priorities change. And I think we're still just beginning to understand the tip of the iceberg of all of that.
Really well said. I want to visualize what you just said here in a second, but let me say a point about the importance of empathy right now. When we think
Mm,
about employee connectedness, and right now, this the office culture was just pulled apart, and a lot of people who have done remote work are still getting their feet under them. I think hopefully moving past the technology glitches and now just getting used to the cadence of communication and how this needs to work and checking in on each other. But like you'll notice you've got these sort of tools in the bucket, for lack of a better way of expressing it, to help you stay connected with your colleagues. Humor, but another big one is
mhm.
empathy. And I think part of why we do this show is we're always trying to give people some awareness to build empathy. Hopefully, they can take this back to their collaborations and have some meaningful conversations to foster that empathy. All right, so to visualize what you were just saying, I'm going to do something crazy here. I'm going to go to a whiteboard. Do you see a whiteboard, Brad?
I love it. Yep, I sure do.
Awesome. Look, I was thinking about this the other day, and I want to try to draw it. This is the old world for people who are parents with kids. And so I'm really talking to people who don't have kids, so that you understand that people on your team actually have less time now. And when you think about productivity, here's why you have to expect less. All right, in the old world, here was my work life, and here was my kids' life during the day. Let's call this 9 to 5, for lack of a better way of expressing this section of the day. Kids were doing school or preschool or something like that, and mom or dad were doing work. I'm not going to talk yet about a single parent house, which is a whole nother tricky situation. But this is what the old world looked like, and then everyone got together down here for dinner in the night and blah, 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 right? And maybe you had some morning time up here, breakfast, and getting the kids ready for school. That's the old world. What we're going through right now, guess what? It now starts to look something like this, where in the mornings, this area is gone because we're over here helping kids do some stuff, getting them engaged. Then, in my family, what we do is kind of divide and conquer. One of the parents will go into work while the other parents is kind of again engaging the kids. But what you realize is there's like this zigzagging nature throughout the day, and what you end up with is something over here where you have these blocks of getting work done that kind of look more like this a little bit,
Yeah,
and then
that's
maybe
right.
some late at night or early morning where you sneak in some hours. But if you add all this up, this is less than what this old model was over here when you had these nice big blocks, right? It's just no longer the same world. So look,
That's right.
now let's do the opposite. What does it look like if you don't have kids? Well, in the old model, you still have maybe had that 9 to 5 thing because you're out doing fun things and you hit the nightlife or joining clubs or whatever it is people do. Go see movies. As a parent of young kids, my lifestyle didn't look like that for a while, but I remember those days and it was fun. Well, now, thanks to this quarantine and social distancing, your workday looks like this. If you're a workaholic, you're just going to town
That's
because
right.
there's nothing else to do, and you can crank. You can go 9 to 9 or something crazy, or even more. I mean, it's the reason why I'm bringing this up is that when you start to compare these these two worlds, I'm going to change my color here to draw this. You compare the single person, or let's just call it the non-parent, to the parent right now over here. Wow, that is some real friction on teams when you have some people who contribute more and you have other
Yep.
people that can contribute less. And I don't
Yeah.
think I'm going to guess there aren't a lot of teams out there having this conversation. They might be starting to, unfortunately, realize this the wrong way because there's now frustrations and frictions about who's carrying more load and who can't do so much. And that's unfortunate, but I'm hoping people are waking up to it. Maybe they can listen to us and they're going to start to just talk about it. It's always half the battle is just to be open and transparent. Like, this exists. What can we do to mitigate? What can we do to have empathy for the people that have less time? And are the people with more time willing to take on more to compensate? They don't have to, but I think it's a great conversation to have and just figure out how we can help each other get through this in the context of teams collaborating and trying to keep doing what they need to be doing. All right, so let me switch back over to us. There we go.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
love
love
it.
it.
My
My
thought on
thought on
that, Chuck,
that, Chuck,
I agree with you completely. I love the visual nature of that, and it certainly is a really good and accurate depiction of our day. I would like for you to draw the SpongeBob time in there for me on the next model. Would be great. But this is the reason that we might recommend for people to get clear on their priorities. So, I can tell you that I've worked with a lot of organizations over the last couple of days, and everybody has uh, needs right now, and everything looks good because there are these short-term wins. And I think if I was a leader right now, being able to say, here are the three things we're going to focus our time and energy on, and our people resources, and we're gonna funnel everything into this. And it's not that the other things aren't important, but I think it does help give some clarity, so that when we do have those pockets of the day, that we can get in, focus very quickly, and knock out those things that are going to give us the biggest return on our investment. And that not they don't take capacity. That kind of communication actually builds capacity back for your teams.
All right, now let's shift to the single parent because I think it's a really
Yep.
important conversation when we talk about empathy around the team. If you know there's people on your team that are single parent, they are going through a whole nother level of what's happening with the pandemic than someone like us, where we do have partners here to help and where we can do this juggle together. I can't imagine what it's like to be a single parent, especially with multiple kids right now, where you're kind of on your own. And even the supportive nature of the community and maybe grandparents and friends around that usually would chip in to help people along, um, maybe they can't right now. They probably can't. And now you have the pressure of work on top of full-time kid management. Um, I just hope employers and the colleagues of the people are really empathetic and provide those people a lot of room to do what they need to do because family needs to come first.
Charlie, I couldn't agree more. I think this is where empathy and grace, space, kind words. When we talk about compassion, Angie, my wife, and I have talked about this a lot. Where there are some kids who are in the school where she teaches at, who don't have whole families like we might, but also who may not have access to technology needs that their little one needs to be able to complete work, or to connect with other people, or there may be a single mom or a single dad or a single grandparent that is has multiple kids in the house who require multiple screens. I also think about our foster care system right now, where, gosh, it's way upside down. I think when we talk about the word compassion, I think oftentimes we think about really big things, like I need to do a huge initiative, and that's compassion. What we really find, though, is that compassion lives in these everyday moments that are kind of ordinary and pedestrian. We may not notice them if we weren't really kind of looking for them. But that's where a kind word and an email goes a long way. Calling to check in, FaceTiming with those friends who may need a little extra support here and there, it becomes really, really important. Man, those are game changer kinds of things. They're transformational. They fundamentally shift the way that we experience life. But I think you're absolutely correct about the single parent who is right now trying to figure out how to do fifth grade math and also maintain a job so that there's a paycheck coming in so that they can put food on the table. I suspect that kind of pressure to be crushing, absolutely crushing.
Yeah, and heroic, right? So I think we can all admire what they're doing. If Martin was on this call, he couldn't join us today. Martin Lowe of On Point Consulting. He's always good to say that this is a moment where you build, your culture brand. This is where you build your legacy. This is where you build dedication, because the way you treat people right now will be remembered. It's times of crisis. The character you show will be the one that you're known for through all so many years. All right. If you show people a lot of leeway, a lot of space to do family first, they're going to remember that, and they're going to be dedicated, loyal employees for a long time, I would imagine, in almost all cases. So this is a great chance for employees to realize productivity is not the main thing right now. What's important right now is that we're building and maintaining trust with our employees. We're making sure they feel like they're taken care of, they have their safety, and especially in situations where there's kids, they're able to put their kids first. Great. That's going to pay dividends for that employer for a long, long time. And a quick story related to that, long before the pandemic, good friend down the street lost his wife to cancer a few years ago. He was a long-term employee for a Fortune 500 technology company. I guess I can say, because it's a good story, it's IBM. And I talked to him after, things had kind of settled down. Things were getting to a new normal for him and his college-age kids. And I talked to him, with work, IBM gave him a really long leash as his wife was going through the final stages of cancer. And he'd been away, I think, for 9 months, not doing any work, still getting a paycheck. Awesome on IBM to give that space, let him focus on his family through those last moments. And I think what was really cool is when you talk to him, you realize he's never going to work for anyone else. Even with any things he doesn't like about whatever is going on week to week, the trust and that connection that they've built now is solid, and he's totally dedicated. So IBM's got, did a priceless thing in their context. And then they also created a story someone like me shares and talks about how great it is to work for IBM. Let me unmute you.
I'd love to see a company take a stand on this. I think the wrong thing to be saying right now is this is business as usual, and we're maintaining. And we've said many times on this live cast over the last couple of weeks, there's nothing business as usual about what's happening right now. It is very different. Even if you are used to working remotely like you are, Charlie, or like I am, it is fundamentally different. What would be really great is to see a company perhaps take a stand, or an organization take a stand to say, I would like to, take Friday afternoon and just spend with your family, or take a random Tuesday, and we're not going to be worried about work and productivity and sending emails right now, but this is a day to just have game time with your family, and post a picture of it. Tag us on Instagram of your family playing Monopoly, or whatever you want to do. I have a good friend of mine that works in the financial services industry, and we were on a call yesterday, and he said, we have some things that we need to think about doing on the personal side of our own finances. And I said, well, I've got a 9, a 10, and 11. I won't be able to talk until the afternoon. He was like, I'm going to take the afternoon off. I'm just going to spend it with my boys. And I was like, man, good for you. Like that's what we need to be doing now, investing that time and energy into places. And I think organizations have a real opportunity for a win of saying, look, Friday's family time. Go do that. We won't have meetings before 10 o'clock. We know you're getting your kids ready for science and math today, or you're doing reading logs, whatever that might be. Great opportunities.
Yeah, and on a note of positivity and optimism, there are a lot of conversations already emerging about how is this going to change culture after we get past the worst of this. How is this going to reshape our relationship with work? We know in the Western society that we have a workaholic 20th century mentality still embedded in us. And for a decade now, there's been so much talk of work-life balance, which is good, but clearly not available to everyone, right? And I'm hoping one thing comes out of this is that we start to think about what could make that more available to everyone? What can companies do? I think the change is going to happen because of, like most things, economics. And when you realize that if you want the best people working for you, you're going to have to realize that the new demands are going to be the flexibility to work from home, to be able to stay engaged with your family and not have to be completely focused on work 24/7 or even 9 to 5. And hopefully there is a new era of work-life balance that comes out of this as parents can be more engaged with their kids, and rightfully so.
Agreed, man. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. Awesome show. Awesome to talk to you again, Dr. Brad Shuck, University of Louisville. And we will be back hopefully on Monday for actually a second part of this conversation, where now we're going to look at what is it like for an employee who's doing this isolation alone versus people like us with families. So that's a real different take on what the experience is like. And I think there's some more empathy we can develop through that. All right. So I will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend, Brad. I appreciate this.
Take care.